Welcome to In Depth. My name is Nancy M. Prayer Johnson. I am the Deputy Metro Editor here at the San Antonio Express News, and I have Gabriella Ibarra here. Gabriella is on my crime and courts team, and she covers the courts beat. Welcome, Gabby.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I wish the topic of this podcast was not so dark, but it is a pretty dark one. We have been, I would say our whole team and others on the Express News team have been very busy since the beginning of October covering this case. And so what we're talking about today is the Brad Simpson and Suzanne Simpson case. Suzanne Simpson went missing on October the 6th, and we're going to hear more about that from you in a second here. Her husband, Brad Simpson, is being held in the Bexar County Jail in lieu of $5 million bail. He is charged with murder, aggravated assaults with a deadly weapon, causing serious bodily injury, and tampering with a corpse and possession of a prohibited weapon. So I did have to just read that off my computer screen because it's quite a few charges. And this case has had a lot of ups and downs. It's been it's been a ride, right? Just covering this and getting the documents and trying to report what's happening here. Gabby, can you go back to October the 6th and talk to us about what we've reported so far? And I do want to give this caveat. There was a gag order that was signed by Judge Joel Perez last week. And so we reported on that as well, that attorneys, law enforcement, and witnesses may not speak about this case. Also, in a little while here, we will also talk with Brad Simpson's brother, Barton Simpson, and then also the CEO of the Battered Women and Children's Shelter, and that is Marta Peláez. So that is coming up. All right, Gabby, let's hear from you about what happened in the case so far.
Yeah, I mean, certainly there is so much to unpack in this case.
Yes.
A lot has happened since October 6th. I can tell you that Suzanne Simpson was last seen on October 6th. This was the night of October 6th, and she was reportedly seen by a neighbor who saw Brad Simpson and Suzanne Simpson in some kind of physical altercation in front of the home. This neighbor saw this happening. Shortly after that, there were screams heard from the wooded area across the street from their home in Alamos Park. And that is the last time that anyone has reported seeing her.
Now, again, that is according to an arrest warrant.
That is according to an arrest warrant that was made by a lieutenant with the Alamos Park Police Department. And since then, Brad Simpson, who is Suzanne Simpson's husband of 22 years, has been arrested and charged with murder, like you just said, in connection with her disappearance. I can also say that in that affidavit, in that arrest warrant, there is also a mentioning of investigators had spoken to children of Suzanne Simpson, and one of her children had mentioned that Suzanne was pushed against a wall by Brad Simpson that day that she disappeared. And since then, there's been so many things that have happened. In terms of latest developments, Brad Simpson has been indicted for the murder. And
that was earlier this month.
That was earlier this month. And it's important to note that even though he has been charged with her murder, her body has not been found.
Yes. And what is her attorney saying? What is Brad Simpson's attorney saying about that?
So that's really interesting because the indictment that was filed mentions that Simpson killed his wife by, quote, manners and means unknown. And so that's something that Brad Simpson's defense attorney, Stephen Gilmore, is really trying to hone in on because the indictment doesn't necessarily, according to him, make it clear how Suzanne Simpson was killed. And thus, there's sort of some issues with that in terms of how Brad Simpson is unable to create an adequate defense if he were to go to trial, if he's not fully aware of why he's being accused of murder. So police investigators found Suzanne Simpson's DNA on a power saw that Brad Simpson had allegedly concealed after the alleged murder. And that was something that was presented to the grand jury that indicted Brad Simpson. That wasn't included in the arrest warrant.
The grand jury also heard quite a bit of other information as well, in addition to that really gruesome allegation about the DNA on the saw. What else did they hear about just the days from the 6th on to about probably the 7th and the 8th that Brad Simpson's movements were on those days?
So in this 15...
And again, allegations according to the arrest affidavit and what was presented to the grand jury.
Right. So I mentioned earlier that there was an affidavit that was written by an Alamos Park police lieutenant, and it is quite a lengthy affidavit. It's 15 pages long. And there's a lot in it. This affidavit describes the movements of Brad Simpson the day of October 6th, the day she went missing, and as well as October 7th, the day afterwards. And there's a lot to unpack there, but Brad Simpson is seen at a Bernie Whataburger. He's also seen at a local Home Depot. And at that Home Depot, he purchased concrete, heavy-duty trash bags, Clorox, disinfectant spray, among other items. And these were all visible in his truck bed at that time.
And in the truck bed was also a tarp.
Right.
A large tarp covering an unknown, it just said, I believe it said just a large item.
Right.
That it was concealing.
Yeah, it's not exactly clear there, but this was all seen in surveillance footage that was obtained by law enforcement. It's also important to note that a man who spoke with police said that Simpson had approached him in the Home Depot parking lot and asked him where the nearest dump was in Bernie. So police are also using that against him in the affidavit as well. So there's a lot to unpack there, but that's for the most part what police are saying about Brad Simpson.
And there was a burn. Was it a burn pit or something? Can you talk about that a little bit? What was there?
Yeah, there was police were able to locate a burn pit that contained, I believe, some cell phones or like some computers or something.
Cell phones and a computer.
Yeah. And I think police are trying to say that Simpson might have been it might have been an effort to hide evidence.
Right. And there's so much we don't know. And this is only what we've seen in some reports. Actually, when we got the indictment at one point, it didn't have all the parts to it. Then we saw some other parts. That's where we saw the DNA that the police had written about DNA on the saw. So again, just constant details that we're getting. And we're still very much trying to report the story out and get more documents and information. However, that gag order really keeps people from talking with us about this openly and sharing documents with us. But we are very, very grateful that Bart Simpson and Marta Peláez are going to talk with us. Barton has been very outspoken in the case. Not really being very, will you just talk about how has Bart been outspoken?
Bart has been incredibly outspoken pretty much since this all kind of happened. He's been very vocal with local media outlets about his brother and his brother's involvement in this. He has made it very public that he wants his brother to come clean. That's something that he has consistently said, and that he wants him to do the right thing. Outside the courtroom, I was there actually when Brad Simpson made his first courthouse appearance.
That was last week.
That was last week.
First week of December.
Right. And Bart was incredibly vocal about his feelings toward his brother and how their family is doing. He's really become kind of like a spokesperson for their family. He's kind of taken on this role, and that's just, something that he's, taken upon himself.
He's very well known in the community.
Right.
He works for Alamo Colleges District, and also he's active with the Texas Cavaliers and a lot of other fundraising capabilities there. And so we're grateful that he's going to speak with us, but we also know he's going to be guarded and how he speaks about the case, and that's why he's actually agreed to speak with us. Mm-hmm. Marta Peláez is very well known in the community for her work and advocacy with people who are victims of domestic violence. So let's go ahead and speak with them soon. Thank you. Now we have two special guests with us today, and we are very grateful that they have joined us and taken the time to speak with us today. They are really important in our community, and it is my pleasure to introduce them to you today. This is Marta Peláez.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi.
How are you?
Good to see you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for joining us. Marta is actually the CEO of the Battered Women and Children's Shelter. Marta, how long have you been doing that?
It doesn't feel that long, but actually when I say it, 26 years.
Wow.
Yes.
Thank you for your service to the community.
Thank you.
And we also have Barton Simpson. Barton is the executive director over at the Alamo Colleges District for the foundation, correct?
That's correct.
And Barton is actually Brad Simpson's brother. Barton,
Yes.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So it is a really important time now that the holidays are upon us. I mean, it's amazing, but the holidays are here, right? That we're in the holiday season. And Marta, you've been telling me how important it is to talk about domestic violence and how often it occurs, and to raise awareness about all domestic violence. What can you tell us about it?
Domestic violence is insidious. It impacts mostly two people who have a history, a past in common. Most of the time, they will have children in common. They have finances in common. And for some reason, this happens between the confines of four walls in a bedroom, and they are not talking to anyone about it. For different reasons, the victim and the abuser are not sharing. And until we hear of horrific things that happen. So that's why I always asked the public to please get educated as to what domestic violence is, what is not, what it sounds like, what it does to people, what it does to the children, what it does to the victims, what it does to the community at large. So I always take it as an opportunity to repeat that over and over and over.
How big of a problem is domestic violence in San Antonio?
1 in 3, one woman out of 3 that you may know will be impacted by an abusive relationship. It is way too common. That is too many people. That is a lot of people.
And I think sometimes people assume, like we all have our stereotypes and implicit biases, and people assume that this only happens on the west side of San Antonio or the south side of San Antonio, and they all have these assumptions. What can you say about that?
Well, let me dispel those myths, because it is a myth. It happens to anyone. If I could share with our audience names of victims that we all know in the community, it would be appalling to understand that it happens in all social strata. It is not relegated to the poor, to the uneducated, to the older, to the younger. It affects everybody. The demographic at the shelter, we also have non-residential services, but at the shelter, the demographic is a 36 to 38-year-old woman comes to the shelter with 3 children in tow. The socioeconomic demographic varies a little bit in reference to the non-residential services. But in summary, anyone and everyone is represented.
Bart, First, I want to say I'm sorry for all that your family has gone through. My heart goes out to you. I've done some reporting, as you know, and Gabby here has done quite a bit of reporting as well, and other people on our team, throughout our team at the Express News. We've all done as much reporting as we can under the circumstances. And my thought every time I have to reach out to you is, gosh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I even have to ask the questions. Because personally, I cannot imagine how it feels, right? You have been a very open spokesperson for the family. Can you just tell us about how the family is doing right now?
Well, I can tell you, I can certainly give testimony to what Marta has said, that I'm surprised. I would not have ever thought that I would be sitting here today in this capacity to discuss this, and it's stunning, but it shouldn't be. It sounds like it shouldn't be, and it's just something that is not talked about enough. Mm-hmm. The family is in this mode of just being completely focused on surrounding these young people. We've got two adult children and 2 younger children, just surrounding them with love and giving them all the support that we can. I mean, they really are without a mother or a father. So this is a situation where, fortunately, we have all that love to give, and we're entirely focused on that. And I will tell you, it's tough when dealing with all the stress and some of the innuendo that the victims of this, which are frankly these young children and all the rest of the family, mm-hmm. Are somehow responsible or didn't do something, and that is that, and you think about you do think about when these situations happen. Naturally, as a responsible person, what could I have done? And I've racked my brain, and I think that that's why I'm here listening to Marta, and to help us sort out what people should do and how we should act. And really, that's why I'm sitting here today, to get that message out, so we can all be fully aware mm-hmm. of what we need to do if we're around these situations. I can tell you that wasn't obvious to all of us. So, and there are signs maybe that with a little bit of education that we could look out for, that where we could have jumped in and gotten something done.
Thank you. Actually, Marta, I want to end this in a little bit here with your advice to people. So that's actually how I want to end it. So we will definitely get back to that part. And we want to know about the signs and everything we all should be doing and looking out for. I think Gabby has a question for Bart.
Yeah, if I may, Bart, you have obviously been very outspoken since Suzanne went missing. You have clearly become the spokesperson of the family. And I think we all want to know, why have you chosen to take on that role? And what is sort of your goal here?
Well, my goal in every situation, of course, I can't speak specifically, but I will tell you this, that I think we should always work hard to do the right thing. And what's amazing about this happening with me is that I have tried to spend, in the latter part of my life, of my working life, I've tried to spend my life working on community good. I mean, I'm executive director of a foundation that provides advocacy for these situations. So this is especially surprising and hurtful to me, in that I've committed my life with Alamo colleges to raising money for scholarships to provide education, and a lot of these situations where I am around advocacy, we support one of my main charges is to support advocacy over at Alamo Colleges, and domestic violence happens to be one of those advocacy issues that we help our 78,000 students with. And we provide one-to-one case management support to students who's with domestic violence issues that are connected with DV agencies like Family Violence Prevention Services. And we help with the tough decision to seek and secure help. And that is a really hard decision for people to make because it's, and I will tell you, it's embarrassing sometimes. And we really need to take away that stigma and that's, we work around this and all kinds of issues all the time. So I'm committed to a better community, and when it gets close to home, and you need to make it better, I'm committed to that. So this is close to home, certainly as it gets, and the pain that has been caused to our family and the greater community by an incredibly bad decision. Is amazing. I mean, we are in pain, but we have to be strong and put love around all the victims. And my parents are suffering. My sister is suffering. These kids are suffering. My wife and children. I mean, we are a tight family. So working through it is difficult.
What is the plan for the holiday for the family?
We're all going to be together. So we have family is large, and we're all in San Antonio. Okay. So we are a really extended family is super large. My wife's family's been in this town for 15 generations. So if you know what that means, there's just a lot of cousins, and that's really always a good thing because we all love each other, and there's a whole lot of support. And on the other side, all my family lives here, and my sister is married to a family that is from here, and the Clarks are from here. So we are getting together, and people aren't left out, and we are bringing them in, and we're I'm looking forward. I'm actually looking forward to the holidays and being together.
Good. That sounds as positive as can be under the circumstances, and that's comforting as well. Now we know, and we just spoke about this, Gabby and I, but we know that you can't say anything directly about the case because of the gag order, which bars anyone from law enforcement or attorneys or witnesses to speak about any of that. But you have been very open and outspoken about a message to your brother Brad. Do you mind saying what that message is?
Well, do the right thing. I just think that and without speaking specifically to my brother Brad, just saying when somebody is in this situation, it would be so much better if you put yourself at the mercy of the court. If you would say, there is a redemption in the truth. And so there's that, the truth will set you free. And if you take it, when you're in a bad situation, after you've done that bad, if you immediately start doing the right thing, instead of the wrong thing, and continue to do the wrong thing, I think that a lot of times there's there's in trying to hide something and cover it up. And that is look at all the misery that can be created from that type of situation. So I think my hope is in that awful situation where, God forbid, somebody hurts someone, call an ambulance, call 911, get them the help you need. You know, I was with a good friend of mine, had a lunch. I don't think he would mind my saying, Cappy Lawton, who's a local restaurateur, and he told me that he has used his whole life, a process almost where when he gets angry, he counts to 7. And, you know, when he told me that, I tried it. And so when you feel that rage, slow down and stop, count to 7, back away. You know, it's a lot easier to walk away from a fight than to get in one. And sometimes you just have to check your emotion. So, you know, and I don't know if Marta, I would seek the advice of the professional, but I will tell you this, it seems like when you take a breath, you can really stop something bad from happening. And then when you're in a situation when you've done something bad, you know, take responsibility. I mean, it's just, we learn that in kindergarten. I mean, it is take responsibility for your actions, own up to it, and mercy will be shown to the extent that I can. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have consequence, but it does mean that you can help your loved one get out of a situation, and you know, and your family and all the people you love. My heart hurts for this situation for everybody. I mean, and it is. I will admit it's hard to say, but even my brother, who has made this series of incredibly bad decisions, my advice is it's never too late to do the right thing and get on that path. And I think that's the only way as human beings we can set ourselves free. Whatever that outcome is going to be, though it's not probably a great one at this point. It's, you know, you have to suffer the consequence for your actions.
Thank you. Marta?
Invariably, one of the painful things to recognize is that when something so horrific as a fatality happens in a family, it's impossible for the members of the family to feel a level of responsibility, to feel shame, to feel discouraged, to feel the depression, not only because of the loss of the family member, but also because of what they think they could have done. This could have been prevented. I should have. While those are emotions that are perhaps inevitable, they should be checked because ultimately the responsibility is on the one who caused the fatality. Mm-hmm. The one who's causing all of the pain is that abusive person. Mm-hmm. So that is the only person that is to be called the responsible. And it's painful to see families taking it as one can imagine they would take it. Mm-hmm. But on top of the pain and the sorrow, there is that sense of responsibility that should not be. Mm-hmm. This is an adult, a grown person that appropriated the life of the person that he claimed to love and respect. Mm-hmm. The life of the mother of his children. What nerve, what sense of proprietorship over a life, And that is what domestic violence is someone appropriating in every sense over time. This doesn't happen from one day to the next. There is a progressive development, if you will, into what ultimately arrives in some of the cases at killing, taking the last and final and most definitive act of power and control, taking the person's life. Not only through time has he taken the self-esteem, the dignity, the hope of the family members, increasingly over time. But there is a goal at the end. And this person is in pursuit of that goal. Reason why we provide that safety at the Battered Women and Children Shelter. Because we know what the goal is. There is that final act of ultimate proprietorship.
And we have talked about this in the past over the years as I've reported on, unfortunately, many, many tragedies, and you've talked with other journalists about this as well. What is the most dangerous time in a relationship that involves domestic violence?
Leaving is the most dangerous time. And unfortunately, everybody around the victim is so focused on leaving, making sure that she lives, making sure that she does something. And sometimes in anger and desperation, a family member that knows that this is happening, or a friend who knows that this is happening, on whom the victim has confided, will say, please, leave that guy, leave this blank of a person. You do not deserve it. You need to leave. I don't know what you're doing. You've come to me all these times and you're still at it. I've had it. You just go on. You are beyond help. Let me tell our audience. That person that victim has thought of leaving many, many times more than you can ever imagine. She is in the grip of the intentions of the abusive person. And because there are cycles within the larger cycle of domestic violence, those cycles are intermittent. And in psychology, you will hear there is no more efficient conditioning schedule than the intermittent. That's why people buy the lottery, week after week. Well, I didn't win it last time, maybe this time. So he hits, he batters, he denigrates, he humiliates progressively through that cycle to arrive at something every time more severe. And then he comes back and says, I don't know what was over me. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. I'm having such a bad time at work. Things not going well. Look at our finances. We have no money. All of these things are going to happen. And then I took it up on him. I'm so sorry. So he may be gracious enough to wipe her tears and to give her a hug and take the kids out for dinner and maybe give her a gift just to show. That's the intermittency of that very, very sick cycle. She believes him. Why not? This is the same person who one day, years ago, promised to be everything for the family, to be the protector, to love them, to do all these things right. That's who she fell in love with. And she can still see that person in this monster. And that's why she stays. There is a point, however, where she sees that there is no way out but leaving. But the threats, and what she knows will happen if she dares leave, because that's some of the things that he has said. If you leave, I will do this, do that. You're mine. He's invested time, effort, maybe even money, he thinks, in getting her to be his. And now she wants to, what? She wants to leave him and leave him in shame before everybody else who thinks that the relationship is, throwing stars and sparkles of happiness all around. And that is when the ultimate act of proprietorship takes place.
So you're not surprised when you see these awful headlines and these cases?
Absolutely not. When you know what has happened through time, it's all written. It's all written on the wall. Yes.
And Bexar County still has one of the worst rates for domestic violence in the country, correct?
One case is one case too many, but unfortunately, we do occupy what I always call a place of dishonorable distinction when it comes to domestic violence and child abuse, which go hand in hand.
What can the community and, the family members, but the broader community, what can they do? And what are those signs? The way Bart mentioned a little earlier, like what are some things that we can look for? And then how can we tap into the network of departments of, there's San Antonio Police Department, the Bexar County Sheriff's Office. There's all these nonprofits. There's a coalition. And there's a lot of resources here in San Antonio and the broader area to help people who are victims. What can we all do?
So I can tell you that law enforcement is well educated. We have these conversations when we get together. I personally train the police cadets, and I do that because I feel the weight of the responsibility of the information that is passed on very personal. I want them to know what I know they should know. We have had training sessions with the district attorney's office. One of the members of the district attorney's office is on my board. The chief of police is on my board. I have a very close and open relationship with Sheriff Salazar. So we talk about these things. Domestic violence, unfortunately, necessitates, per the law, the victim. There are perhaps things that can be done in that realm. I just last week, in reference to Suzanne's case, I said to somebody, domestic violence does not fit the law. It does not. It calls for the victim to participate in ways in which it shouldn't. There should be provisions in laws that incorporate that difficulty because of everything that I have said, for her to participate as a witness would participate in any other type of crime. Domestic violence is different.
And by that, you mean they would have to press charges. They would have to come forward and be a witness and testify.
Yes, absolutely. So domestic violence does not fit the law, or rather, the law does not fit the predicament of the victim.
Ms. Peláez, if I may, you talked a lot about domestic violence and your organization. Can you expand a little bit on some of the resources you provide to victims of domestic violence in the case that anyone here is a victim and they're listening, they're hearing you talk right now, can you tell us what kind of resources you provide? I know you said you provide safety to women in these situations, which are can be incredibly volatile. Can you expand on that?
Absolutely. So let me preface my answer by saying that everything that we provide and every program that I have participated in developing is based on what we have heard from the victims themselves. So we don't have one thing that is not necessary, you know. So we have legal services. Everything is free of charge, of course. We have legal services. We help them with their divorce. We help them with rebuilding their identity, because many of them come with absolutely nothing. They didn't have time to even grab a social security card or a driver's license. So we help them with that. We have educational services for adults. We have an after-school program for the children. We have a clinic on site. We have case management. We have counseling for the adults, for the children. We have activities. We have physical activities and educational activities. We have a kennel. Many of the victims would not come if it were not for the kennel. They don't want to leave the kid's little puppy, which may be the emotional support for the children while those awful things are happening. Mm-hmm. And so that is why we have the kennel. We link with, we have housing. So the first part of our mission is to address the stability, emotional and otherwise, and legal stability of the victims. In terms of the legal, let me go back a little bit. We process protective orders and or any legal matter that they may see. We have become very emphatic in providing services to the children. Generational violence is what mostly impacts our community. And it is why we see an upward trend on domestic violence. Because that 36, 38-year-old mother that comes with those 3 children, that family will be saved. I can tell you in at least the 26 years that I've been there, we have had no more than 2, I believe 3 cases where the victim has been at the shelter and then left and she was killed. She became a fatality. So I think that amidst every horrific thing that we're discussing is a good index. But our concern is for the victim and the family that does not reach our doors. That is the family or the victim that perishes, that is killed, that may suffer needlessly. Now, there is an idea out there that the shelter is this or that. Most people imagine the shelter a cold structure where there are cots lined up and maybe 3 sandwiches are given per person. There's absolutely none of that. And I very tactfully offer an invitation to anyone who wants to come. It used to be much more close, but I need the community to be engaged, to know what is necessary to do for a family and to see the programs working their magic, to see a survivor now who has arrived as a victim in the worst of shapes, emotionally and otherwise, while she's handing me her 2 front teeth, is quite rewarding to see that very same person 3 weeks later walking through the hallways envisioning a different future for herself and for her children.
What is your message directly? If there's someone watching right now who is a victim, who is in a situation of domestic violence, what is your message to that person?
You deserve to be treated with love. You deserve to be treated with respect. You do not deserve threats. You do not deserve to be conditioned to be a human being for the safety of your physical integrity and that of your children. Reach out. Reach out. There are resources. We have a 24-hour hotline that will answer that telephone and let you know that we're there. We're there. We're not the Ritz. We're not the Ritz. I have to quickly say that. Mm-hmm. We're not the Ritz Hotel. But we focus on the dignity and the hope.
Bart, what is your message to anyone who is in that kind of situation?
Get help. And one question that I might have for Marta is also, it's too late generally by the time they get to your doorstep, but are there early signs where the abuser can get into counseling? And I know that's not your focus and it shouldn't be, but with this high incidence, this is a lot of people abusing. And is there a resource that they can go to? Is there a resource where they can go, I don't want to be this bad person anymore?
Absolutely. We have a program, and if we were to provide services to the victims exclusively, we would be doing only 50% of what we are supposed to do. We need that responsible person to claim responsibility and accountability. Right. So yes, we have a program for the intervention of those who choose to abuse. For the most part, as you can imagine, they are mandated individuals who attend, but it's open to anyone. And we have from time to time those people who recognize that they need help so that they can approach life in a different way. You don't have to live with the person. Right?
Right.
So there are provisions even in the law. There is such a thing called divorce. Right? So you do not have to ruin an entire family's lives and yours alongside to realize that. So the program is long in duration because these problems many times come from problems that come from the homes. There may have been sexually abused as children. They may have been abused physically as children. They may have experiences that formed this idea that women are less than and that they are to be at the service of the male. And I continue to speak as if it were a male abusing a female, but let me just say that there are also men who are abused. And we have sheltered in the past 2 years more men than we have in 47 years.
Wow.
So something is shifting. But talking about shifting, it's necessary for that person to shift whatever ideas this person has about relationships in general. And it can happen. They do change. We are witnesses of the change. It doesn't happen overnight.
I'd imagine sometimes there are drugs and alcohol as well that play a factor as well.
Absolutely. However, there are many people who are addicted to drugs and alcohol who are not abusive.
Right. So, bottom line, there's no excuse.
There is no excuse whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for everything that you do and your staff, your team. And Bart, thank you as well for being a spokesperson and being out there in the community and really trying to speak against domestic violence as well. We appreciate you coming in and speaking with us today. And we hope that that people heed your advice and the information that you so generously shared today. Thank you.